threshold that was hit. But ultimately, is it a nice situation? Should it stay that way? I think all of us should agree, no. And wherever we are, no matter what faith we are, no matter which side of the fence we're from, we should all disagree with what's happening to the children in Gaza, or anywhere else for that matter. And the reason why I keep referring to anywhere else is because, you know, I'll take a minute to just point out, I think some people were a bit concerned about me coming here. I don't know, I was master of the cult of death. I thought I was some character in a film or I was going to play a video game, you know. Come on, seriously. In all seriousness, I have no shyness looking at a person who hates my guts to say to him, tell me what you dislike about me, and if I can change it, I will. I prefer we all get along. It's the only way we can progress with good, with peace, with goodness, with happiness, something everybody wants. And I think that some of the other things that were mentioned, I don't know if all of you were fazed by it or worried about it or concerned about it, but some of the things that were mentioned that I believe people should disconnect from society, and I think people should not engage in any type of community activities, and that I personally hate Jews or something, I'm anti-Semitic or something. I grew up in Houston. Do you know where Houston is? There's a town called Bel Air. I was just outside it. My best friends were Jews. I used to go to a synagogue weekly, just for fun with my friend. His dad was a rabbi. And on top of that, if I said anything, or if I were to say something here today about Gaza and hurt someone's feelings, I apologize. It's not what I'm trying to do. And in terms of death, I'm not sure if it's called death. Death is something we're all going to face someday. And the thing that was said is that I'm focused on death, and I talk about death a lot. There were 2 lectures on death out of like 300. And that is something we prepare for as Muslims. We're told to prepare for it. And one of the hurtful things that was said about me, the only thing that really hurt my feelings, was someone who was very dear to me passed away. And I tell this story to inspire people to do good. Like this kid, this guy, was such a sweet guy. He was just the sweetest guy in the world. And he just dedicated his life to this community work. When I met him, he had well over 100 grand saved up for something. And when he died from cancer, he didn't have enough to bury himself. And he spent most of it on this charity work. And I was telling this story, and you see the smile on my face. My smile is a smile of joy for his life, with sadness. You can smile in sadness. Like Michael Jackson said, isn't it? Smile through any kind of happiness or sadness. Or was it Charlie Chaplin that said, smile with a broken heart? Was that Charlie Chaplin? Uni student. Anyway, so I smiled, and what was said was that I was happy that my friend died. Why say things like that? It's not nice. I didn't say all of this about what was written about me to get sympathy or get your vote on my side. I said it so you can realize how silly it is when we mock each other. How silly it is when people bite at each other. Look at the animal kingdom. They only attack when they need to eat. They never harm otherwise. Animals don't behave the way humans do. And I think it's high time that we realize, learn from our past, as they say, history keeps repeating itself. Let us be an inspiration. I like to conclude, if we're going to talk about what's happening in Gaza and whatnot, I like to conclude with just looking at Egypt. What a beautiful example of the Christians protecting the Muslims while they prayed. And now the Christians having the day of the martyrs and the Muslims protecting them, as John Rees said beautifully in his speech. I think we should look after each other as human beings. Merge with each other's societies and get to know one another through the unions, through such events like this. And I keep my speech short. I cut a lot of it out because you know what? What's really important is to see what you guys think, to get to the questions and answers if we have much time. So I've cut a lot of it out. There's much you can learn about Gazan Child, and a lot of it I kind of feel like you already know it, don't you? You already know what's going on. Most of you. If you don't, just get on YouTube. Sheikh YouTube is very intelligent. So is Sheikh Google, 2 of the best scholars in the Islamic world. So I'd like to just say about a life of a Gazan child. It's not the Gazan child. It's any child in the world. I'm being a war child myself. It's not nice to grow up, to constantly be disconnected, to constantly not know, and most of those kids losing their parents. And in all sincerity as a human being, and I'm not Palestinian, and I'm not Israeli, so I'm very non-biased in that chord, if you leave the Islam out of it. As a human being, I'll say, prioritize. And when we look at priority, we don't look at, who's more important, whose blood is holier, etc. Is it really that? If I've ever said anything about a Jewish person or a Muslim person or anyone in the negative sense, it's always been, if you think you're better than others. That arrogance is evil. That arrogance is filthy. And I pray God protect me from ever being arrogant to think I'm better than another human being. I already don't think I'm any better than any of you in here. And with that, I ask God to bless all of you with guidance, and myself. Anything correct I've said is from His guidance. If I said anything wrong, forgive me. I pray Allah make you forget I even said it. Ameen. Thank you. Before you take questions, I forgot to say I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for getting here late. I left really early from London, got my whole team together. These guys were like, I want to go. A few of the young guys in the charity office, they're like, I want to come. I changed cars, got a bigger car, brought them all with me. And the M1, God bless the M1. I wanted to call Humayun and say, listen, you know what? Tell them I'm sorry, Tell them I'm sorry, I can't make it. It's just, I sat there for such a long time in traffic. And then I thought, no, we got to keep going for these guys. They struggled, so we're here. But I'm sorry I was late. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, could they please come forward, or if they want to stay in the seats as well, that should be okay.
Sure. You can just ask from there.
Okay.
Where's the mic? You said you were going to give her a mic. This one. All right, you can give her this one. Here, go take it. There you are. Thank you.
Let me start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Malik Yawmiddin. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Let me represent myself from the Israeli Jewish who served in the army for 2 years. I didn't come here to represent my army. If I see some of the movies, I'm ashamed. I want to speak in the name of all the children. You and me have a lot in common because I grew up in the kibbutz, close to Lebanon, and as a child, I lived in the shelter basically. And I can cry when I see these movies because there's a lot of Israelis, children with no legs, with no families, people that lost their families in the suicide bombers in restaurants. Most of you, my brothers, نحن كلنا واحد كبير عائلة. Allah كلنا. And God is for everyone. And the people like me, as Israeli, they want peace. We want Palestinians to have their own country. We want them to have freedom. We want them to live good life. We don't want them to be isolated. But there's so many problems in my country. If you come to visit, you will understand it on your fresh blood. And I want to ask you, my friend, first of all, I admire you. I didn't think it would be like this.
Thank you.
I admire you, and if all of the people in the world will have the same attitude as you, we will have peace, inshallah, Bezrat Hashem. Now, my friend, I want to ask you, what do you think we can do to help these innocent children in Gaza, in Ramallah, in Nablus, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, Sderot? Because we cannot live like this anymore. We cannot sit in restaurants. We can go, not take buses. Those little innocent children in Gaza, they don't deserve to live these lives. What do you think is the solution? Because if there's any way, I, as an Israeli, can help. I would like to do that.
That's a powerful question. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't have come here to give a speech. You know, Mark Twain said it best, don't let your schooling... I don't want to offend anybody, okay? It's Mark Twain who said it. He said, don't let your schooling get in the way of your education. Basically what he meant was a lot of educated people are actually institutionalized. And you've actually got to free your mind after you study and memorize and learn most of your books. You've got to free your mind above what's just black and white. And you have to realize what the gray areas are of life. As far as what's going on, I personally take a liking to a Dr. Finkelstein. I loved some of the things he said. Fantastic genius in many ways. And one of the things he said to Brother Hamza, I think you guys had him here in this university, right? And what he said to Brother Hamza when he was there, he said to Hamza, he disagreed with an issue about United Nations and whatnot. Ultimately, it's people, what people say. And the resolutions that were put into place should have been put into place, and it should have solved a lot of problems. They're not being allowed to be put into place. And what he says, Dr. Finkelstein says, is that it needs force to put those things into place, and no one's willing to do that. So solution, in that sense, is not really in our hands. And maybe I'm ignorant saying that. I don't know. A solution beyond that? Well, number one, let's not create more tensions beyond those borders. I think, there are things we can do, which is us, ourselves, in our communities. Our relationships between the Jewish communities and the Muslim communities here in the UK need to become extremely beautiful, to shock the world. I think our communities need to merge, and when they do, we become a model, and we show an example to Israel, to Palestine, and to the rest of the world, that you can coexist, and we did for thousands of years. We can coexist, we can live together, we can love one another, and we can appreciate each other's differences. And I believe that in terms of real change, people power. I think if we all first fixed our situations, then as a people we can come out and face the governments. Governments will have to eventually listen to the people, and a lot of people all over the world, every country, have lost hope in governments. They just lose it. From the Muslims to their own Muslim governments, to the West, to everywhere. People just don't feel their governments listen to them anymore. And those in political power, those with an evil agenda, they will use people like you, like me, to make us go against one another. And we need to be smarter than that. We need to realize that on both sides of the fence we have children and we have families, and we don't want that for each other. We need to just stop ourselves. All of us have families in many countries, and we can relate the same messages back to them. It only takes one person, you and me. We look at ourselves in the mirror at home, we start changing from ourselves, our communities, and this creates a ripple effect, and this continues. And I'll continue to say this wherever I'm invited to speak, and more. But you too have to do that. You can't wait for just Dr. Finkelstein and others to come, and myself. You have to believe in yourself, that you yourself can make change in your immediate circle, your families, your friends. One step at a time, one friendship at a time. We can eventually overcome this humongous evil cloud that's been put between people by an elite few. I do not believe that Jewish people want Muslim people dead. And I do not believe Muslim people want Jewish people dead. I do not believe that for the Christians either. It's people who happen to be Christians, Jews, Muslims, whatever. There's people out there, handful, small, that create this tension. And a lot of us happen to fall dumb to it. And we eventually fall into that trap. I think the solution starts with just me. I'll do my part and let's see where that goes. And I think the same applies to everyone else. And God knows best. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?